So what did I say in my journalism class? This is a continuation on America's Man's Man lecture from the road of the state of really the state of the Fourth Estate and a real hard look at what journalism is, and really deconstructing, if you will, to use leftist terminology, but moreover, analyzing and getting to the bottom of what is the motive of journalism. What is this thing called the Fourth Estate? Because I was dreadfully miseducated about it by people who themselves were brainwashed by virtue of their having been in the industry for so long in various capacities. Particularly my journalism professor. This is how he had earned a living. And how do you come to terms with the fact that what you're doing is essentially and foundationally evil? His motives for being in it weren't evil. It's like, I don't know, it's like you're a minion for the Dark Lord. You're a minion for the Dark. What do you tell people that you do for a living? Oh, I work for the Dark Lord. I work for the Principality of Media. I work for Satan. But don't worry, I'm one of the good guys. And that's the predicament I found myself in as a fake news journalist. I didn't call myself that when I worked in it, but back then, of course, I was still trying to tell the truth, and I was rather rudely awakened when my boss turned out to, he was doing some very bad things. The truth is, most of them do. I didn't investigate every single one of them because I was investigating what I was supposed to investigate as a reporter. How was I woefully miseducated about what journalism is? I was, I continued to bring up the book, Not Amusing Ourselves to Death at the time, Brave New World. I knew that there was some kind of connection between that and the problem with journalism. Even my professor touted himself as a Christian journalist, and again, he was trying to tell the truth. But it's the thing is that all of the news reporters, you're trained into the field, and while you're being trained, it's like a cult. It is a cult in the strictest sense. But when you're being trained, you're told to investigate. You're taught to necessarily have a very myopic focus on whatever it is you're researching, and perhaps as a necessity, but you don't think about the larger questions. It's a dangerous thing when you're a journalist to think about wider implications of what you're doing, because if you think about the wider implications too much, then you find yourself in the wonderful position that I'm in, which is to really discover the truth of the whole thing, which is much darker than I suspect even most journalists really understand it to be. And oftentimes when they begin to awaken, their immediate survival instinct says, well, you better not attack your bread and butter, your field. You better attack America instead, because of course it's always somebody else's problem. And of course it can't be the industry that you're working in. No, not the esteemed journalism industry, but it is. The truth is, it is. The truth is, it is. There are people who recognize this instinctively, as I do over the years, and they not having the wherewithal to think clearly, they do foolish things, like they would write threatening letters to the radio and television stations. And I've been on the receiving end of letters like that, and I've known people who have done that. It's all part of working in news, because it's like they have some sense that there's something that these people deserve to die in some way but they don't go through the proper channels, go through the courts. And furthermore, our politicians have fallen under the same spell of this media and have been vainly entrapped in the stories of the fake news anchors themselves. Again, and it is vanity, the reason that they comment on. It's like, oh, I'm from KBBB or whatever radio station they are from, or TV station. Can you give us a quote? It's like, oh, I'm going to be on television. Haha. And that's the vanity that the fake news anchor has used as a tool to entrap people into giving them free content, contentedness, and undue credibility over the years. And unwise politicians have far too long played into the fake news media game. The very people who have been undermining America for the last 100 years or however long broadcast and AP wires have been around. So I kept bringing up this Brave New World, and my professor, again, this fake news minion, Lord forgive him, he knew not what he did. My professor said, my one criticism of you, Pete, is that you'd keep on bringing up this irrelevant stuff in my class. And again, he thought it was irrelevant, just like that town meeting member in Saugus thought what I was saying was irrelevant, because they didn't have the context of history. Again, because they have that myopic vision, they don't have the broader historical context. They're taught to, again, myopically focus way too much on the immediate, the immediate story at hand that they're covering, and so consequently they can't think logically or rationally, because that's how they are trained. That's how they're trained. And then I discovered years after graduating with my fake news degree from Franciscan University. It's a communications degree. I discovered this book by Neil Postman. Actually, it was a couple of years later I discovered the book, and it was 2009. I was actually working at a Walden Books. Some of you may recognize the brand. I came across this book. Very sadly, a bookstore was being liquidated. Of course, Walden Books at the time was resorting to selling pornography, Playboy and that sort of thing. So, fine bookstores. I mean, I looking back, I can see why they did it. They were desperate for survival, and eventually they didn't win. People do desperate things when they're trying to survive, and like Barnes and Noble today, I think, does it. They sell pornography. It's the one thing about Blockbuster, they never stooped that low, but another discussion of itself. But I discovered this book called Amusing Ourselves to Death, and it articulated, what all of us kind of understood instinctively. There's something not right about the media, and there it was, printed, and you have to read it. You have to read that book to really understand, to begin to understand the point I'm making here. Because chances are, if you're watching this, you have no historical context, and you think what I'm saying is irrelevant, but it's more relevant than ever. And as we've had a mediascape which has usurped the rightful authority of the rightful pastoral authority, the rightful moral leadership, and replaced it with electronic hackery of the true enterprise, which is the American enterprise, the true moral, wise, manifest destiny enterprise of America. And the millennials are all triggered hearing that, but they're triggered because they're trained, and they're trained because they have no historical context, and all they have to rely on is shallow media training. They've been trained like rats in the box to click, 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 and when something doesn't go as they've been trained to expect, they explode because they're so dependent upon their fake morality system, their fake instant gratification training, which really is quite a travesty. So all of this to say, thinking aloud here, and I know thinking doesn't play well on television, but I don't care. So I'm not here to entertain you. I'm here to enlighten, to share wisdom with you. And if a holy or aspiring to be holy institution such as Franciscan University didn't understand the nature of media in training journalism students, or wasn't even willing to, if it did know the nature of the true pernicious evil nature of media, wasn't willing to train up this journalism student or any other journalism student in what it really is, how much more wayward are the leftist institutions like, say, Emerson in Boston, which, again, train up people in the science of electronic hackery, of the exploitation and usurpation of moral authority to make a profit. And when you begin to understand that, you'll begin to understand the evil nature of what I call the principality of media. In sum, journalism never has been a moral enterprise. Journalism, the interests of journalism, so-called journalism, it's really electronic media is a more accurate name for journalism. Electronic media, like social media, always hides behind some moniker, some more innocuous sounding euphemism, just like the causes they promote. Gay marriage, anyone? It has to do this, otherwise, well, people wouldn't so easily fall for it. It's the trickery, that's the marketing of evil. And when you understand this, you begin to understand the true nature of journalism. This is your former fake news anchor, americasmansman.com and associatedwisdom.com, Peter Vidala. Thank you for listening.